everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer this week. Happy Sunday. Hopefully you guys are having a good one. To all my Sunday morning crew. To those of you guys who are returning, welcome back. And to those of you guys who are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Candice. I'm a Western astrologer with an emphasis in working both with the tropical zodiac, understanding what's going on in the cosmos with help of the Sabian Symbols as well as tarot. Do me a favor before you even get into this video, click the button below, make sure you're subscribed. It would be really helpful in helping me get into the YouTube algorithm. Also, you're gonna get an update several times a week as to when I have new videos coming out on the channel. We got horoscopes, new moons, full moons, weekly astro weather, and live readings on Fridays. There's always something going on here. So please do make sure you're subscribed and give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment below. Let me know where you're tuning in from. I would imagine that today's going to be a little bit of like a wonky day. If you're watching this on Sunday the 12th, obviously this is going to be the weekly astro weather for February 12th through the 19th. But we're waking up to that South Node moon conjunction in Scorpio. So it's a little purgy, it's a little cringy. This is probably going to feel like a day where things are kind of a little discombobulated. So I'm just giving you this heads up now. So if you're watching this first thing in the morning, you will understand why Sunday and Monday are a little bit funky. Let's take you guys through the transits for the week ahead. But obviously we've got some stuff happening now this week. We're going to see a Sun-Saturn conjunction. We are also building towards that new moon in the sign of Pisces. Pluto's now at 29 degrees. Mercury is now in the sign of Aquarius, and Venus is going to conjunct Neptune. There's some loud outer planet things going on this week, and it's hard to not like see that, especially out in the world. How about that Mercury-Pluto conjunction we've had this week, huh? Lots of exposure. We saw stuff all over the place. The gas line thing that was going on, obviously, over in Europe. It's kind of a big deal. What else? The train derailment and the chemical spill that's been happening and that kind of getting exposed. Very Mercury-Pluto things, right? So that's still coming, guys. We're going to see more of that as Mercury is making its way towards Saturn, okay? All right, so let's start off with today, Sunday, February 12th. The reason why I say it's kind of like a cringy, kind of uncomfortable, releasing, purging, letting go is we wake up in the morning, first thing today, the moon's in Scorpio. You guys have been feeling that moon in Libra coming into a square with Pluto since last night. So as the moon ingresses into Scorpio, we're going to feel more kind of Scorpio type vibes, right? Pluto, Mars type energy. So there can be more jealousy. There can be more kind of like we're noticing toxic emotions kind of bubbling to the surface. And then the moon comes into conjunction with its own south node. So that is the detox, the purge. Some of you guys maybe were partying a little too hard last night. You're going to wake up not feeling so hot today. Maybe just emotionally feeling really drained. And we know that as the moon goes through either Leo or Scorpio in this particular season especially, it's very, very active because we'll see the moon come into a square with planets in Aquarius. We'll see the moon oppose Uranus. So it's going to be activating a fixed T-square, okay, right here. So when the moon comes into conjunction with the south node, we go, okay, emotionally, I'm sick of my own shift. Time to make a shift, time to clear something out. But just pay attention to what's kind of being released. You might wake up and just feel really emotionally overwhelmed or just heaviness, right? And so as the moon continues to keep moving through the sign of Scorpio, she's going to then start coming into an opposition with Uranus. And this will be very emotionally destabilizing. This is also about finances. This is about our resources versus others' resources. So I would anticipate some really colorful news going on Sunday going into Monday about what we're anticipating is going to be taking place in the markets. Recently, some of the major headlines that we've been seeing just throughout Aquarius season is now this push to get rid of, staking, crypto staking. So that's been the Saturn Uranus kind of stuff where they're still squaring off. The sun's in a square to Uranus in Taurus. It's where larger companies, larger groups, institutions, politicians are trying to limit the ability to have financial freedom, right? Or the institutions are kind of feeling the pressure. So as the moon goes through Scorpio, it's going to oppose Uranus, which means that we're feeling a little emotionally destabilized. It's interesting to see the moon in the placement of the moon's exaltation. So it's going to be in its detriment, and it's making an opposition to Taurus, which is very much about physical, tangible security. I could see some people having some challenges financially Sunday and Monday. Okay, I know that that's just a theme generally overall, but like having issues being able to withdraw, being able to transfer, there being delays with being able to get things. I think we're going to see probably some bumps in, especially the crypto markets. They're always running. But generally when the moon goes through Scorpio and it makes this opposition, we see that as a period of something breaking down, right? And as the moon continues to move through Scorpio, then she will start coming into a square with the sun. Now, this isn't going to happen until later in the day, really kind of going into Monday morning. Okay, so we see the opposition taking place around 15 degrees. So that's going to be Sunday evening. And then here comes the moon. She will make some nice aspects outside of the square. Early morning, Monday morning, we see the moon come into the square with the sun. So we're going to feel a little discombobulated on Monday. Things may not go according to plan. You might have some delays. You might have some hangups. Might be a good day to like leave early for work because I could definitely see the moon square the sun and Saturn is like roadblocks, limitations, getting stuck, not feeling like there's a way forward. And we're going to see the moon also square Saturn. So the Sun-Saturn conjunction is building. It's going to be really interesting to see the sun and Mercury and the moon come through this conjunction to Saturn, because we're going to start to see the final effects of Saturn through Aquarius. We're going to see certain rules possibly go into like being written and being like determined. There might be new legislation, new laws and things that are going to be coming up that might kind of seem like ironclad. But with the sun and the moon in a square, it's saying like the conscious and the unconscious are kind of at odds, right? So there's that sun in Aquarius that's like, I want to break free, you know, I want to have fun. I want to go and be with friends, or I want to do this or that and like connect with other people. But the moon coming in is saying that we're all going through some kind of collective fear that's making us feel limited, or making us feel like we're not able to kind of connect with other people. This has been a lot about finances. This has been a lot about the banking system. This has been a lot also about the internet. And so it's interesting to watch over this last like week or so, all of these congressional hearings that's been coming out essentially about the realization of limitation of information and freedom of speech on Twitter. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with it. I'm just stating the facts that literally the Sun, Saturn, and Aquarius is a group of people sitting at a table having a conversation and basically saying, okay, so how were we limited? And it's a bunch of individuals that make up this these congressional hearings. So it's literally against banking, business, perhaps even like pharmaceutical companies. We could see that as well, because Uranus can be things that are more experimental. So I think we're going to hear more about that. And I keep telling you guys, as we get into the spring of 2023, there's going to be a lot more disclosure. We're hearing like about wild things that are also interfering in airspace. That's very much boundaries, right? Saturn in Aquarius, the sun in Aquarius is where we're limiting where people can and cannot fly, where people can and cannot also like surf the web. So we're going to see more of these themes as the sun and Saturn come into conjunction. The nice thing is that we will see, even though the moon is rather uncomfortable, she's trining to both Venus and Neptune. So there is a sense of like, okay, well, we needed to get that out of the way because we needed to go through like a clearing or a cleansing. So my recommendation is in spite of some of these difficult squares on Monday morning, stay hydrated, stay grounded, focus on your emotions, pay extra close attention to just like kind of like spiritual stickies, right? Like you might actually need to do your meditation. You might actually need to do something to kind of like, clear your auric field, so you're not feeling like you're picking up on other people's kind of collective fear or emotions. And then the moon is going to continue to keep moving through Scorpio, and it will ingress into Sagittarius in the late PM hours. But we're going to see most of like the bang up will be when the moon is coming into a square with the sun. So that's going to be first thing in the morning. So this is going to be early morning here on the East Coast, like 4:30 p.m., a.m. Until the moon comes out of a square with Saturn. So that's going to be like right around 12:30, 1 o'clock Eastern. So midday, the energy begins to shift. And then we also start to see the moon coming into a sextile with Pluto. So that's also helpful as well for just like purging and detoxing and kind of clearing stuff out. We're also feeling a little bit more, I think maybe in control now that we have had some kind of, information that's been uncovered or something that's been kind of like shaken out. So in the PM hours, we're going to have the moon go into Sagittarius on the 13th. The energy shifts. It's much more optimistic. It's a little bit more bright. There is also a sense of having more of a focus on philosophy and travel and sharing and just optimism. So that's going to be a nice shift that we're going to experience on the 13th. And that'll continue through the evening. So we then come into February 14th, Tuesday. This is interesting over Valentine's period, a couple days before and after. We're seeing a Venus-Neptune conjunction that's kind of building. But once again, lots of outer planet conjunctions. So there's kind of some big stuff going out in the world that may overshadow some of the sweetness of that Venus-Neptune conjunction. But nevertheless, we wake up Tuesday morning, moon's in Sag, and it's forming a trine to Jupiter. So this is actually really great. I feel like this is going to allow us to travel more freely, communicate, share, and just be a little bit more open and optimistic. I'm also liking the fact that the moon is sextiling Mercury, so it's inspiring us to share and connect with other people, to make plans, to go to parties. It's not limited to just being something that's like super romantic on this day. I feel like this is a really great day to get together with friends and to, be going out to dinner and planning parties and other things that's not your stereotypical traditional Valentine's Day, right? And it's on a Tuesday. So some people are probably going to be actually celebrating before or after. Now, later in the days, the moon continues to go through Sagittarius. It's going to start to kind of come into opposition with Mars. So by the time we get to Tuesday evening, we're looking at like 6:30, 7:30 p.m. The moon and Mars are making an opposition. So there's this feeling of being rushed, right? Of being rushed. It's like, hurry up. Are you ready? We're going to miss a reservation. Like, I'm trying to get to you. I'm on my way. Like, don't rush. Take your time. Whether you're waiting for somebody or you're trying to kind of make a reservation or make a party, or even just be able to make sure that you're following through with something that you agreed to someone, please take your time. Because when the moon is in opposition to Mars, we can get very emotionally irritated, and there can be a sense of, if we're feeling rushed, getting a little fresh with how we're communicating. I also would say that the moon, and we'll see this, I feel like just in general, this is just without this Venus-Neptune conjunction, but I could definitely see like Valentine's Day as being a day of just disappointment overall for some people, whether they're struggling with not having a partner, or they're, going through some rocky, kind of periods with a romantic significant other, or maybe just disappointment, hoping that somebody was going to like do something special. That energy is brewing on the 14th and the 15th. I'm not saying this to be like Debbie Downer, but I do kind of see that for a number of reasons. One is the Moon-Mars opposition, because this is happening in mutable signs, that there is this sense of, well, you said you were going to do this, but now the story is changing, right? Or now things are kind of shifting. So there can definitely be like a sense of people getting frustrated because they feel like maybe they've made plans or they've gone out of their way for someone, and somebody's, not really kind of meeting them halfway. I also say that because through the 14th and the 15th, the moon is going to continue to keep coming into a square with Venus and Neptune, which is aligning. And I'll talk about what that means in a second. Essentially, this is like hoping for the best, like hoping that something is going to turn out the way that you think it's going to turn out, hoping that, that gift that you got somebody is going to be just perfect, and then it arrives in the mail and it looks nothing like the picture. There can be distortion issues with how things look. or that things sounded really good and then you get there and you're kind of disappointed. Maybe you're trying a new restaurant that you've never been to and you're wanting to take somebody out and impress them, and it takes forever to get there, and you get there and then you're like, oh my God, it looks nothing like the pictures. These can be some of the things that can happen on the 14th and on the 15th. So just be forewarned. Also realize that it's important to not set your expectations too high with the Venus-Neptune conjunction. I feel like the morning of the 15th, as we're seeing the moon come through Sagittarius and it squares Venus and Neptune, is kind of taking away from the sweetness and the romance and potentially even like the fantasy of the Venus-Neptune conjunction. It may kind of show us another side of it, which is like, they said they were going to be here and they didn't show up, you know, or I got stood up, or and I went out of my way to do this thing for him and then, like, you know, he didn't make time for me. So once again, just be mindful that that's kind of in the air. And I feel like it can be built into something that doesn't necessarily need to be like that overly romanticized anyway. We don't need a holiday to give people flowers. All right, so on the 14th, we're going to see the moon continue to keep going through the sign of Sag. We wake up in the morning on the 15th. This is the day after Valentine's Day, okay? And I could imagine this is like, you know, the girls going into the office and being like, look what my boyfriend did, and some people just sitting there like in a slump, you know? The moon is coming into a square with Venus. So this basically means that in Sagittarius, it's like, this is what I did, or this is what I thought it was going to be, and this is how it really looked, or people kind of feeling a little disappointed or left out. When the moon squares Venus, we have a hard time emotionally relating, or there can be something at odds between what we need for emotional security and how we may give or receive love. So something's not like meshing. And this is going to be on the 15th. So that exact square is going to happen closer to, the afternoon of the 15th. So let's move now to the Venus-Neptune conjunction. And this can go one of two ways, okay? On one side, Venus-Neptune is very romantic and dreamy and inspirational, and it's very Disney fairy tale romance movie. Like, it can be that for some people, depending on what placements you have. If you happen to have any water placements between 22 and I would say 26 degrees, yeah, it can be a really romantic time for you. Sun, moon, rising, right? So any of those, because you're going to experience those trines. Both planets are very comfortable in the sign of Pisces, okay? So Neptune is the modern day ruler of Pisces. It rules fantasy and illusion and films and pictures and spirituality, and it's like a very sensitive planet. But it also has connections to deception and what is foggy or not completely clear, or something that is intentionally kind of shifting and changing, right? I think of like waves, you know, kind of like crashing through sandcastles and then they just dissolve. Neptune dissolves things. So it can dissolve our boundaries. It can dissolve our perspective. It can dissolve things also for us emotionally. And then we've got Venus in its exaltation in the sign of Pisces. Generally speaking, like, this conjunction is really wonderful for spiritual people, for religious art, for music, for poetry, for being by the beach, for having a nice bottle of wine and enjoying dinner and music and atmosphere. But the problem is we're getting kind of robbed on the 15th. So if you're celebrating Valentine's Day on a different day, I would advise you to push it all together, like to later in the week. I'll give you a better day in a second. Because I'm not wild about Venus in a square to Venus and Neptune in a square to the moon. This also makes me feel like there's going to be travel advisory issues. We're going to see a potential really significant storm. I've seen some stuff that's kind of been brewing. I want to say, I think it was in New Zealand, in regards to some of the extreme weather and the flooding that's going there. But it's like we're seeing it everywhere. I mean, it's happening all over the place. Some of the flooding and some of the storms. But usually when we see squares in these mutable signs, it does indicate extreme weather. So I'm getting the feeling that in some places in the world, extreme weather is literally inhibiting the ability to spend Valentine's Day with people, or they can't like connect and get to their destination, or they get stuck somewhere at an airport maybe. Watch for news in regards to this also. We're probably going to hear some stuff in regards to planes and airports and international travel. The downside of the Venus-Neptune conjunction can literally be the scam that you fall for online. Somebody says, hey, you know, like you get this email. I had this from a relative recently. I just want to donate some money to my friend who's really sick with cancer. And I was like, yeah, sure. Who is it? Like, how do you need help? And then I realized very quickly, oh, this is a scam. Somebody hacked their email. That can happen because Venus in Pisces is very compassionate. So there's this sense of wanting to give and wanting to nurture and wanting to care. But it can be so self-sacrificial with that conjunction and so idealistic about the outcome that it can kind of get left holding the bag, you know, emotionally. So just be mindful of that there can be some more sensitivity and some like mopiness that can be going on with that conjunction. If you use this appropriately, I think it would be really wonderful to be like, okay, I'm going to be meditating, I'm going to be painting, I'm going to be, you know, vision boarding, I'm going to be drawing, I'm going to be writing music. You can definitely work with this, but it's still not ideal for Valentine's Day-esque type stuff, especially with the square that's setting up. The other reason why I feel like we're getting robbed is because you see the sun coming into conjunction with Saturn. And so we'll feel that a day or two prior. So Mercury's still in conjunction to Pluto. Our minds are on fire with just an unloading you know, number of things that are kind of imploding in the world and all this news and this stuff that we're like, whoa, this is crazy. Sun is going to conjunct Saturn. We're going to feel burdens and limitation and heaviness revolving around karmic responsibility. This is also, I think, going to be, this is like the grand finale. Everybody's getting their Saturn, you know, like test. Everybody's getting their exam throughout this next week or two to see what we're kind of completing and concluding in terms of what we've been working on karmically for the last 2.5 years as Saturn has been in Aquarius. It's getting ready to go to Pisces soon. It'll be doing that in this next month. So it's wrapping up, really working hard in developing something in the sign of Aquarius. You want to see where Aquarius is in your chart. And the Sun Saturn is a day where it's just like, yeah, it's what I love, but it's what I'm willing to do for what I love, or it's the hard work and determination and commitment, or it can even be the sacrifice that you potentially make for a dream or for a goal that you've been focusing on. So it's kind of interesting because that's a day that's kind of like more hard work, dedication, commitment, especially to your goals, to other people, to friends. And then we've got the Venus-Neptune conjunction, which should be really romantic. So I think we kind of got gypped on this one, guys. Sorry. So the moon's going to keep moving through the sign of Sagittarius. It'll come into that square midday on the 15th, which is kind of confusing emotionally and in terms of like travel and being able to relate. I think we might see some debates about culture and religion that might be kind of playing a huge theme out in the world also during this time, especially just what's going on so much internationally with some of these ever-changing rules and regulations. The moon's then going to enter into Capricorn. That'll be the late evening on the 15th. So while we're sleeping, it's making that ingress most likely, which is going to have us focusing more on Saturn. And this is why I think the Sun-Saturn conjunction is going to pack a punch. And this is going to be on the 16th when we are waking up. This same day, I should note also, we'll see this on both the 15th as well as the 16th, is we have Mercury, the mind, messenger, communication, in the fixed air sign of Aquarius. So you're going to see a lot of wild conspiracies and people talking about stuff and all these, you know, crazy things that are floating around the internet, or things that are finally making its way to the internet because Mercury finally kind of switched signs. It's going to be in a square with the nodes. So this will be late on the 15th on Wednesday, coming into Thursday. Fateful conversations, right? So it's like, you know, like, what do you really think? And like, you know, can we put you on the record? Because it's going through a Saturn-based sign and it's Uranus. So it's going to be information that's going to be getting to the masses. So we'll see that setting up on the 15th. The square will be over the evening. So I'm anticipating we're waking up Thursday and there's some really interesting news out in the world, because the Sun-Saturn conjunction is setting up and then Mercury squares the node. So we wake up Thursday morning and we see that the Sun and Saturn are going to be conjunct at 27 degrees. Mercury is still slightly in the square, so it's faded conversations, faded information, people, things that we're learning, information we're exchanging, places we're going. That seems to be really important. And like I said, because we are in Aquarius season, we always want to look at what's going on with Saturn and what's going on with Uranus. And when the moon is in Capricorn, we want to look at what's going on with Saturn. So we've got this both ways. I'm really curious to see what's happening on Thursday. I'd like to read the Sabian symbol for both the Sun-Saturn conjunction and also the Venus-Neptune conjunction. So I'll read that when I'm done going through the week. 27, so that's going to deal, very specifically with a Gemini-related theme, okay? So that seems to suggest that this, I keep waiting. I'm like, when is the next Twitter files drop? Maybe something's going to drop around then. I'm guessing it's going to be between the 15th and the 20th. That's my view, just because of the lunar transits. But this is literally about limitation. Sun Saturn is larger businesses, institutions that are holding things back. And also this is about the people, right? Aquarius is the people holding certain groups accountable. So watch the news on the 16th. We've got that setting up, look at the moon being in Capricorn. The moon is also coming into a square with Jupiter, so we're feeling like there is a sense of looking at businesses and powers and government figures, right? Moon in Capricorn is going to be also limiting our ability emotionally to feel like we can be open and be connected. So the moon comes into a square with Jupiter. Feelings are definitely running high. There can be the sense of individuals being very reactionary as a result of what news is coming out, or as a result of just power, in the world. And then the moon is going to continue moving through Capricorn, squaring Chiron. Okay, so where some of these power and authority figures are actually affecting or hurting or hindering individuals. The moon will trine the North Node, so it's saying there's a need to kind of go through this because it's helping us figure out how to find more stability in our physical world, with our finances, with our food. So I'm going to be kind of keeping an eye out and seeing what's going on. Where are we going to find out that there has been oversight, basically, trying to control or manipulate food, resources, inflation, physical, also materials, earthly materials. So this can be where it's impacting crypto, that can be where it's impacting, the earth and banking, all that stuff. But generally when the moon's in the trine to its own North Node, it's saying there are things that are happening, events that are happening, that is to make us aware and help us feel more so grounded, right, in the sign of Taurus. The moon will keep moving, and as it does, it'll make its way through this sign. It'll stay there into the next day. So let's look at the 16th. Am I missing anything? Trine the North Node, square Jupiter and Aries. Okay, so we're good. So the moon keeps moving through Capricorn, comes into that square in the evening with Chiron, so watch for that. There can be some hurt feelings. We wake up on the 17th. This is Friday, and the moon is in a trine to Uranus in the early morning, right here. Throughout Friday, the moon's going to keep doing its thing. It won't conjunct Pluto until the later evening. But this is also something I'm watching. So what is this, Friday? Moon conjunct Pluto is going to bring up some deep-seated emotional clearing, purging, finding out more about secrets, finding out more about power struggles, finding out more about infiltration in the government, and where there's some sinister things that are going on. And we're getting ready to come into the new moon. So it's interesting that moon Pluto is representing that, while we still see the sun and Saturn in conjunction. And this is coming into a dark moon because we're going to have a new moon shortly after this. This is also going to be a very interesting day because it is seemingly suggesting that there is something that is being hidden, that's being closed out, that perhaps we're going to find more out about once the moon sweeps through Aquarius, or we come into the Mercury Saturn conjunction, or maybe even when we come into Pluto and Aquarius. So the next month or so, the astrology is really wild. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the Yeah, so that moon conjunction with Pluto is happening in the early, looks like overnight morning hours. So maybe as you're waking up, you're feeling that moon-Pluto conjunction. Very similar to Sunday morning. It's uncomfortable, okay? We're feeling emotionally threatened. We've got Pluto at 29 degrees. The moon will be at 29 degrees. The sun will be at 29 degrees. Guys, holy cow. Friday morning, that is intense. Venus is getting ready to hit 29 degrees. These are the end degrees of all these signs. So it's basically saying it's completing, it's getting ready to wash something out. So then the Friday morning, we don't really see anything other than that conjunction. Am I missing anything? No, I'm pretty good. We're going to see Mercury sextile Jupiter. So Mercury is about communication information in the sign of Aquarius, you know, going freely, releasing this to individuals. So I think people are going to start feeling more empowered about what they're learning or what's coming out in the world this week. I think they're also going to start feeling like they have alliances, that there's support from groups and institutions. I think you're going to start seeing more people realizing that if they're banding together and they're sharing in their experience and talking about where there's been limitation, we can help each other. We can also support each other better rather than competing and having conflict and having this feeling of like division and separation. This can also bring good news. So Mercury in a sextile to Jupiter can definitely bring good news. Okay, so we keep going through Friday. The moon is going to late Friday evening move into Aquarius. We wake up on Saturday, and this is the last day of the sun in Aquarius. And on Saturday in the morning, the moon is coming into conjunction with Mercury, okay? So this is gonna be about communication, socializing, getting together, having a good time. We're seeing these two planets also coming into a trine with Mars. So I'm kind of getting the vibe that the second half of Saturday night can be an interesting day, both because of the Mercury Jupiter sextile that's still in play. So we're feeling a little bit more active and spontaneous, but also because we're seeing this trine that's building. And we just want to be with other people with all these planets in Aquarius, but it can feel for some people heavy, right? There can be this feeling of heaviness, of limitation or something. But you want to find like-minded people. That's really what you want. You want to find like-minded people. Obviously, we know that when the moon is going through Aquarius on Saturday, the moon's going to square its own nodes. So it's basically saying, hey, you need others, you need groups, or we need to be completing some kind of goal, or we need to be working together. And the Moon-Mercury conjunction is encouraging us to communicate, to rise above our differences and not see each other as two separate teams, but as a united group working towards a common cause. So that's going to be kind of interesting. There's a lot of like, kind of like wrangling up the crew and being like, we're all going out, like bring your friends. And like, even if I don't know them, bring them too, really kind of including people. So this is a really great time, I think, to socialize. Still have Venus in its exaltation too. So I like that. We're starting to see Venus come into a sextile with Pluto. So that's kind of sexy as well. Great for socializing and just being more perceptive and getting kind of like, more so tuned in to, I think, other people's kind of behavior, mannerisms, right? We're kind of picking up on it a little bit more subtly. Okay, so the 18th, later in the evening, we are going to see the sun move into Pisces. Okay, so Pisces season starts on Saturday. Sun enters into Pisces. That Moon-Mercury conjunction is still hanging out. Really use that, guys. We've got some planets and some really nice placements that makes me feel like you guys can have a good time out. We keep watching the moon move into a trine with Mars. Getting out, about, talking to people, walking around the neighborhood, having a good time, working well with others. Even with that sun in Pisces, it's fine. The only thing that I will say is that we are coming into the new moon. So this is like that dark moon phase. So even though, Venus is a nice placement, Mercury and the moon wants us to be social, Mars wants us to get out, some of us can feel a little crabby, right? So as we're coming into that new moon, that's going to be at 1 degree of Pisces. There is this sense of, oh, we're closing things out. I did a video for this already. It's already out, the new moon in Pisces, and I like it because it's going to be on a degree that we're going to hit several times throughout Saturn's transit this year. Okay, so if you're wanting to commit more seriously to a meditation practice, if you're wanting to commit more to developing your intuition or spirituality, if you have a goal in mind, look at where Pisces is in your chart. This new moon conjunct Saturn is laying the groundwork for something you will commit to all year long. So some of us might be like, I have stuff I have to work on. I have stuff I have to do. I'm not ready. You know, I just have too much on my agenda and I would rather just kind of have a quiet night at home. You may better utilize this period on Saturday, maybe even Sunday, cleaning, you know, detoxing, purging, organizing, you know, getting stuff out, cleaning out the fridge, cleaning out closets, really getting everything out of your system before you set these new intentions. And remember that Pisces is going to be more about the emotional body, that the spiritual self. It can be about self-undoing, but it can also be about divine connection. So some of you guys might feel like you're kind of going through the cosmic washing machine and you're like, everything's closing out. Well, yeah, you have a lot of stuff at 29 degrees. That's what happens when we're wrapping stuff up within these particular signs. That's okay. Because we're getting ready to start something completely new with some of these planetary changes. Saturday would be a night that I would go out, and you can use Sunday as more kind of like the regrouping period. So we're going to wake up on Sunday, the 19th. And this is where you start to see the moon coming into, well, moon was in a square with Uranus, so emotional turbulence, especially like groups and other people and, you know, resources. I feel like people might go out shopping Sunday and they're like, there's no eggs, there's no formula, there's no this, like there's going to be things that we aren't going to have. Or you might experience limitations in terms of what you're physically trying to get. So if you do your shopping on Sunday morning, I would say do it this week, earlier in the week, because you're going to find that there's going to be just grumpy people. It's going to be harder to get things, and you're also going to not want to be bothered with that new moon in Pisces. It's a little bit more kind of laying low and peaceful. So get all of your stuff out of the way earlier in the week. Have your groceries delivered. Do whatever you got to do, but do it early. So that way Sunday can be a day of rest and reflection and really setting intentions. That's my advice for you guys. Something else that we are going to see also is, like I said, that moon in Aquarius, right before it comes into Pisces, not only does it get banged up with the square to Uranus, but then it's going to come into conjunction with Saturn, which is going to represent this emotional hardening or this emotional commitment or some emotional decision that we have to make. It can make us feel more somber. It can make us feel a little bit lower energetically. So watch for the moods. They're going to come through, okay? But right when we get to the other side of it, you know, the next day we're in that new moon in Pisces. So yes, it's going to be Monday, but you can set your new moon intentions if you want Sunday night before you go to bed. You can do it first thing in the morning when you wake up on Monday. It's choose your own adventure. Because that new moon is going to be happening very early in the morning on the East Coast, very late at night on the West Coast. So you can do your moon work right before you go to sleep. I make some recommendations in my video, and I talk a little bit about how this is about being realistic with building your dreams, and that part of the lesson of that 1 degree of Pisces is also this realization that there can be some disappointment, or that there is a sense of trying to kind of work through disappointments or working through something taking a little bit longer than you anticipated, but it's worth working on all year round. So look at where Pisces is in your chart. Go and watch that video. It's going to give you all the insight into how to utilize this to the best of your abilities. Equally, it's going to be the last day that we're going to see Venus in Pisces. Venus is about to move into the sign of Aries, completely different vibe. It's going to give me a lot of stuff to kind of talk about with you guys this week. Talk a little bit about the Venus changing signs, maybe the Venus Neptune. We'll talk about that in a separate video. And also what some of these conjunctions mean in terms of the Sun conjunct Saturn, Mercury conjunct Saturn. These aspects are always found also throughout my horoscopes. So if you want something that's more specific for your rising sign, so I don't sound like a broken record, you can always go and check that out. February's is out, and I go through all of these transits because they're very big transits. These are very significant, these conjunctions to outer planets, because it represents something that you've been working towards achieving, completing, or committing to for quite some time. And we do want to see what's going on, right? We want to see what's going on with Venus because she rules the North Node. So if she's in a sign where she's more comfortable and sensitive and emotional, then we are going to feel like we're kind of leaning into our North Node a little bit more so. And with that being said, I do want to read to you guys before I finish these two Sabian symbols. I haven't read them yet, so even I don't know which ones they are. We're going to take a look at the 24 degrees of Pisces, and we're going to take a look at the 27 degrees of Aquarius. And so just as a refresher, I will put this here so you guys can see what I'm looking at. There we go. Are they both? There we go. So they're both conjuncting on the 15th. So Sun, Saturn in Aquarius and Venus, Neptune in Pisces. Obviously really significant if you're, you know, an Aries, excuse me, if you're a Leo or if you're a Capricorn or an Aquarius rising with the Sun, Saturn conjunction. Also really significant if you are a Taurus, Libra, or a Pisces rising with the Venus, Neptune conjunction. So let me read those to you guys really quick, just so we can see what the Sabian symbols say. As always with the Sabian symbols, I round up. So we're going to read 28 degrees for 27 because it's not exactly 27, and 25 degrees for the 24 degrees Pisces conjunction. If you're ever wondering what I'm reading or what decks I'm using, you can see my Amazon link below. It'll take you to my page. And you can pick up a copy of the Sabian symbols because it's really helpful. It really gives you a little bit more to kind of like think about. And sometimes they're exactly bang on. It's like crazy. Okay, so we're looking for 28 of Aquarius. And if you have this page, if you have this book, it's page 362. 28 degrees of Aquarius. A tree fell and sawed. Okay. The theme is doing what needs to be done. This symbol speaks to the foresight, preparation, the ability to quickly grasp what needs to be done in a crisis and do it. The image of a tree falling symbolizes practicality and sacrifice of the lesser for the good of the greater. The emphasis here is on the common sense, initiative, and the wisdom of not waiting until the last minute to get things done. Positive at its highest, it represents industrialness, efficiency, and the individual who is prepared for any unforeseen emergency or event. Lack of imagination and creativity and the tendency to do things the hard way. The accent is on being practical. You may find it necessary to sacrifice or use up one thing in order to create something better to fill a higher need. Your greatest advantage lies in using your common sense to look for ways to create what you need from other things that you don't need. Guard against being short-sighted and overconfident about the availability of resources. Try not to get caught unprepared for an emergency. Plan ahead. Remember when I said to you guys about the end of the week? Just saying. Stepping stones would be practicality, functionalism, resourcefulness, skillfulness, realism, productivity, and sensibility. Okay, so interesting. Because it does talk about like, you know, obviously do what you need to do to get it done, but having the wisdom to be prepared in advance. So perhaps things that we're hearing on, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just listen. People saying like, you might want to stock up on this, or maybe this is going to be this. Obviously, yeah, it's scare tactics, but it's preemptively letting people know what may be shorted or limited down the road, right? What precautions may need to be taken down the road. Let's see what the Venus-Neptune conjunction is. So that's going to be 25 degrees of Pisces. This is page 388. The purging of the priesthood, reformation. The theme is purification. The symbol speaks to the integrity and the consequences of violating a sacred trust. The image of purging the priesthood refers to holding individuals in high places to equally high standards and to the fact that those who set standards for others will also be judged by them. Man finds hope and inspiration for his own ongoing in those who live in his ideals and will not abide by betrayal. On a practical level, the symbol points to the separation of separating the wheat from the shaft, or from weeding out whatever has lost its value and usefulness. At its highest, the symbol represents high standards, ethical behavior, a rejection of hypocrisy and pretense. Negative is prejudice or bigotry, retaliation, and vindictiveness. The accent is on dismissal. Higher authorities could be removed from office or exposed for wrongdoing. Your greatest advantage lies in getting rid of things in your life that no longer serve any purpose by willing to release and let it go. It's time for a good house cleaning. A lot of things that I was literally talking about. This is crazy. Guard against trying to destroy what you don't understand. Avoid making accusations if you have no proven basis in fact. Purification, cleansing, rehab, eradication, riddance, removal, extermination, abolishment, discharge, disqualification, ejection. Venus rules the North Node. My advice is, and this is just in the back of my mind, the fact that these are both happening at the same time. Do not get distracted by things that are happening out in the world that may potentially intentionally create fear or panic or distrust to take your attention away from some of the things that are happening right now. There is major disclosure going on about leaders and political figures and government leaders and big heads of tech companies and banks and all kinds of things who are essentially being held accountable, but you would never know if you're watching the mainstream news. If you're out there supporting local journalists and independent journalists and resources that are going out there trying to bring this to the masses, good for you. If you're not, it's possible that there is some stuff that comes out this week that you're like, offended by, or that you reject, or that you immediately are like, no, or maybe there's some other created chaotic situation that's meant to kind of smoke and mirrors distract you from what's really going on in the world. And I think a lot of it is very much connected to money. I think it's connected to gas and in general, because of Neptune's connection, it's related also potentially to like gasoline, not just natural gases, but gasoline. And natural resources and how things are potentially being manipulated, and or Neptune is also going to be about missing money, right? Missing women. It can also be about manipulation or distortion of facts and figures and numbers, right? And keep in mind that Pisces does rule over hospitals, institutions, prisons, anything in regards also to pharmaceuticals, drugs, things like that. So pay attention, guys. Keep your eyes open this week, not just out in the world, but also where you're realizing that there are certain power structures or authority figures in your own life that may not necessarily be walking the walk and talking the talk. Part of the whole process of Pluto going into Aquarius is about empowering the masses, right? But where it's really going to start doing its work is where we're also looking at the support that's coming from Jupiter in Aries. It takes individuals who are willing to stand up and say something and make a difference and research their rights, and also educate other people, educate themselves, be willing to kind of get outside of their comfort zone and start going beyond some of the division that's going on in the world. So huge things are going to start happening as soon as we see inner planets get into Aries. Venus, and when the Sun and Mercury gets there, it's going to be a completely different ball game, because it's going to be working in harmony with Pluto. So we're going to see that people are more willing to kind of like take action. I'm not somebody who's like a fear monger. I'm not going to tell you, oh, you know, go and do your prepping or do this or do that. But I was already thinking like, okay, looking at the Sun Saturn, that there's going to be some limitations. So just make sure that you have kind of what you need maybe earlier on in the week. So if you feel like you need to lie low and just relax and not worry about the chaos that's going on Sunday, you can. Let me know how this plays out for you guys. Obviously, I'll be back. I'll be doing other videos throughout this week. I want to talk a lot about some of these outer planet conjunctions and touch on that. And yeah, I look forward to being back. You guys can catch me on Friday. We're going to be doing live astrology readings. So if you want to join me, I'll put the link out early. If you guys want to join my memberships, if you like my content, if you like my channel, please make sure you give me a thumbs up. You can also join my memberships and support me, make it possible for me to keep putting this content out there. We're a two-person team, so you don't see the other half, but we're doing this to be able to put out some of the highest quality content and giving you guys as much as physically possible. And we're able to do that because of your guys' donations and your memberships and supporting my channel. So big thank you to those of you guys who have done that. If you want to book a reading with me, I'd love to work with you. Click my website link below. You're going to go to beyondtheveiledtarot.com. You can see my availability. I'm booking in April and in May. I'm usually booked out 2 or 3 months at a time. or you can catch me like on my Friday night readings. I do solar returns, natal charts, synastry charts, election, and much, much more. So if you want to get a reading or if you want to learn with me, I have my beginner's tarot and also astrology courses and several other lectures that are there. Make sure you sign up for my newsletter while you're there so you guys are alerted as to when I have new content coming out. I'm working on stuff for Saturn in Pisces, and also like a little bit of like a workshop, a healing workshop for some of these Jupiter Chiron transits coming up. Really, really, really big moments. I think for people to focus on healing themselves and also for becoming more spiritually aligned. So it's my goal to be able to help you guys do that. As always, thank you guys so much. I will see you later in the week. I hope you enjoy your week ahead. Have a happy new moon, although I'll see you right before that happens. And you guys take care. I'll see you soon.